All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. All right. I don't think this is working. So I'd like to appreciate your strengths when it comes to sitting and listening to people back to back for hours at end and assimilating everything, right? So let's everybody give a round of applause to ourselves, please. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. I hope that energizes us. I am Savio Saldhana. Currently serve as a VP for Data Sciences and AI at Dentsu International. And I'll be talking about generative AI today. That's been the talk of the town, right, for quite a while, for a few months at least. And many of us would be exploring. Some of us have also introduced use cases around generative AI at our companies. And I wanted to offer maybe a framework, right, to making use of all of these technologies if you're wondering how to do so. Right, so this is going to be our agenda. I'll be briefly walking through a landscape of the generative AI space today in the market and opportunities for us in order to implement. Right now, since we are a diverse audience, I'll be talking at 1,000 feet view of some of the use cases. I have 5 use cases across domains that you can sort of pick up and use, right? Although it does require a lot of technical competence as well, right, and effort, right? But this should get you started. I'll also briefly share a framework of maybe how to future-proof businesses from generative AI or maybe any other disruptive technology that comes our way. With that, this is a little bit about me. How am I looking over there, guys? As Iron Man, good? So that was made using Stable Diffusion, which is a text-to-image generative model. This is a little bit about me. Don't want to spend too much time here. Current landscape of generative AI, right? So just a recap for those of us who aren't familiar with generative AI, right? This is what we can do. Right? There is image generation, video generation, text generation. You can input text and you'll get another text out, which is what ChatGPT does. Right? There's text to image, which is what DALL-E does, right? And Stable Diffusion does. There's audio generation to create music, right? There's video generation, and then you can enhance audio and video as well with certain inputs. Right? So all of these are general use cases, and you can then implement them for various actualities. So this is the current landscape of companies operating in the generative AI space, right? Can anyone spot the creators of ChatGPT in this? Dikh raha hai kya? So it's over here in this quadrant. Try spotting it over here. Okay, so you see how large the landscape is? Right? And OpenAI is just one of the players, right? And generative AI is exploding, right? And it is expected that the market will grow at the rate of 30% CAGR until 2030, right? Which is an opportunity for us to leverage. Before I get on to the use cases, right? Red flags, limitations of generative AI, limited accuracy. We've seen that with ChatGPT. Data bias, right? Whatever you feed, that's what you'll get out, right? As a synthesis from these generative models. I remember one use case, one example, wherein the generated text was biased against black people, right? So that's what was fed in, that is what will come out. High resource requirements and insufficient model interpretability. Now, this is something similar to the limitations are sort of similar to we as humans as well, right? So human intelligence, right? Some of the decisions that human beings take are also irrational, right? And difficult to interpret, right? Like starting a war. What will you get out of a war, right? Or laying off people and then senior executives of that company go and have a big bash party, right? So difficult to interpret human decisions as well. And the same is true for generative AI. Coming to opportunities for us, right? So I'll be presenting a simple framework that you can leverage. Before I do that, let me ask you, have any of us envisioned or implemented Any software solution or use case using generative AI so far? Anybody? Raise of hands. Generative AI, no one? No one? Okay, all right. So I'll present my framework, and then after that, maybe I'll hope that it gets you thinking, and we'll come back to revisit this question again to ask and see if that has sparked any new ideas. Okay, a framework for generative AI, right? So ChatGPT is a large language model, right? That is a machine learning model, right? That on its own is good, but you can complement that by introducing other suites of services around it, right? So that model makes use of them. Okay, so there is the prompt, first of all. Prompt is very important. What you input to the model, right? Then the model will understand and give you something out as an output. You have an agent, right? You have an agent which is sort of like the interpreter or the brains behind this orchestrated workflow. Okay, so this image that you see in the center is an orchestrator. Okay, I'll use this in my subsequent slides as well, but this is an orchestrator that pulls all of these multiple things together, right? First is the prompt, then is the agent. The agent will try to decipher what you want to do, right? So when you prompt, okay, you say get me data or maybe stock price of so and so company, right, for so and so date, right? So then the agent will interpret, okay, what do you want, right? And then it'll ask the LLM, does it have the information? Right? If it does have the information, it will present through the LLM, ChatGPT kinds. If it does not, then maybe it should do a Google search and get that for you, right? So that's the agent, right? Now, I've put in some URLs over there, right? If you're interested, you can take a snap of that. These are different ways in which you can have an intelligent agent, right? One of the ways in which you build out an agent is self-ask, right? Wherein you ask the model itself whether it has an answer to it or not. Right, and then determine whether the answer is satisfactory. If it does not, then go and search and get it. Okay, next is a vector DB, right? We are all familiar with databases, right? Databases to store data. Now, vector DB is a different kind of database, basically stores data in a different format, right? Usually you would want to store text, right? So text with characters, right? But a vector DB is basically encoding those characters into numbers so that our search process becomes a little more better, efficient. What it also helps do is perform something called a semantic search, right? Semantic search, right? Semantic is basically understanding the meaning of the words and not just the frequencies of the words. Okay, and then there are generative models, ChatGPT, which you are all familiar with. Then there is memory. Memory, the usual memory that we are all familiar with, will work over here. Why do we need memory? Memory is needed in order to keep track of the conversation, right? So if you are having a long conversation and you want the generative model to be aware, contextually aware of the conversation, so you then have a memory for that. Now there are different ways. You can store the full memory, you can store the full conversation in memory, or better still, if you are constrained for space, then you can use a summarized version, which the LLM also will do for you, right? So both of them are possibilities. And then there is document reader, right? There are several other plugins you can put through. Document readers if you want to parse certain documents. First thing, use case in HR, recruiting and candidate selection. Okay, so we have the orchestrator. What's the input? Input, interview transcript, resume, any other data point that you think will come through, right, comes into the orchestrator. The orchestrator first sends all of this to the agent. Agent bolega kya karna hai, right? What do we want to do, right? Do we want to get out a response? Do we want to search for some more data about this candidate? Is there in our database, right, to augment our decision, right? Agent will do that intent processing and then come back to orchestrator with an answer. Orchestrator will then go to the vector database, right? This is one of the scenarios. You can imagine any other kinds. Okay, next is that the orchestrator go to the vector DB. Okay, now this candidate is interviewing with us. Do we have any information on record? Do we want to search their social media profiles, right? Do we want to search for any other data freely available on the internet so that we build a holistic profile for this person, right? Go to the database or search, get the data. Once you have all of the data, then you want to come back and provide the result as a conversational output, right? And that's where an LLM will come to generate text responses. This is one thing in recruiting and candidate selection. Next is performance improvement. Performance improvement, once again a prompt comes through, right? So a prompt can be anything over here, right? So things like, is the candidate, is my individual, is a member of my team doing well? As simple as that. or it can be complex, right? You supply data as well of past performance appraisals, work that has been done by the individual, right? All of that, along with employee records, right? All of that comes through to the orchestrator. Once again, you bunch it up. The intent needs to be recognized. What do you want to do with that data? Go to the agent. Agent processes that, gives you a result. You want to probably go back to a vector database as well in order to compare the individual's performance with what you have already identified as the ideal performance, right, for the particular role. You get that information as well, supply, and then basically process all of that. Once you have a delta between what is expected and what is current, right, performance, you can then supply that personalized coaching feedback through an LLM, right? You might also want to take that feedback and store it in a performance database, right? So a database, historical database of performance as well as the recommendations that were given. This will also probably help in producing dashboards. Next in marketing, personalization. You get customer preferences, along with that a prompt, right? What do you want to do, right? Do you want to personalize, generate personalized emails? Do you want to generate personalized ad copy? Do you want to generate personalized images, videos, whatever, right? So that prompt comes in, the orchestrator once again sends it for intent analysis to the agent. You get the result. You then look at your own databases and repositories for best practices, right? So you might want to build out a database if you do not have one of what should be the ideal best practices your team should undertake when going about marketing and advertising, right? So you secure all of those best practices, combine all of them, publish them to an LLM model. LLM model gives you a result. You serve the content and then record and track the performance of what you are serving, right? The reason for that is because you need an iterative feedback loop so that you improve over time, right? Ideally, what you would want to do, you would want to correlate, right? Correlate what? Correlate what you are supplying as a creative or a copy, right, or an email to the kind of response that you get from the individual, right, to from the recipient, right? Once you identify those correlations, अच्छा मैंने ये word लिखा था, right? ये word लिख के ज़्यादा लोगों ने click किया, possibly. So that's a correlation, right? And you would want to maintain that on an ongoing basis. Next is use cases in finance and investment analysis, right? Very simple, right? And this is something that I don't know if you have tried doing. How many of you use Bing Chat? Bing Chat. Bing Chat, nobody? Yeah? Yeah, Bing Chat, good. So my dad is in the finance field, basically investment advisory, right? And we thought, why not try this out, right? So how do we get stocks, right, that we want to invest in, right? So we asked Bing Chat, give us stocks, right, and compare all of those stocks in this particular sector based on their ratios, right? So Bing Chat went about getting all of the details of the stocks from NSE, BSE, where money control and all of that, and produced a nice table for us with all of the ratios, along with recommendations of which ones out of them we should take forward, right? And then smartly it also put a disclaimer over there saying that please consult an investment advisor. It is not competent enough to advise. Okay, but anyway, so things like that are in the realm of possibility, right? So this is basically what's happening behind the scene at a high level, right? A prompt orchestrator detects intent, determines what to do, right? Goes to the database. If you have a database of stocks or whatever it is you want to analyze, in this case, investment classes, if data is not there, perform an internet search, get back all of that, analyze any historical data or records that you have, produce a report, publish that, push that into an LLM. LLM will produce textual responses and present those recommendations, right? So this is a high-level framework, right, that each of us can easily deploy, right? Once you have all of these things in place with an orchestrator, you can do wonders. Another is customer profiling, right? So customer converses, right? So this is on the use case around a chatbot, right? So customer converses. I was speaking with Prakash, and by the way, Prakash, you should have him as one of the speakers later on, right? He has a lot to offer. So speech to text, right? Speech to text, you have a conversation, right? Speech to text, send all of that data to the orchestrator. Orchestrator decides what to do. First, send it to the agent. Agent will detect the intent and then inform orchestrator what to do next, right? You might want to do a database search, right, to understand the customer's footprint, social media footprint, or if you already have data about their ranking and scores and all of that, right? You would want to record this conversation in memory, right? So that you have, or maybe summarize it so that you remain contextually relevant, and then record any insights that you get from that conversation, right? About their preferences, about their risk appetites, about their term investment horizons, right? Get all of those, and maybe even red flags, right? Get all of those, pass them to an LLM and continue the conversation. Once that is done, you have sufficient information to take a decision. All right, so running through all of these, I hope this is making sense, right? Everybody, are you with me so far? Yes? Okay, great. Forgive me, I used to be a professor at one point in time, and I do visiting faculty gigs as well, so that professor might come out in me. Please bear with me. So yeah, another in operations, predictive maintenance and optimizations, right? Generative models, right? What does generative model do? Generate, right? Identify patterns and then generate on similar lines. You can use that in order to generate data, right? There's a new growing field of simulated data, right? From generative models, right? So use that to our advantage. You can use that for predictive maintenance and optimization, right? So you simulate scenarios, you simulate alternative processes to a predefined process that you may already have, right? And then examine the effectiveness of those simulated processes, right? Once you have a measurement of the effectiveness of the processes, you can then determine whether you need to perform some kind of predictive maintenance or optimization on those actual real world processes, right? So generative AI can do much wonders in our lives, right? So once again, everybody, all of these use cases, are you with me? Make sense? Yeah? Thumbs up? Cool. Next point, future-proof from generative AI-led disruption. And this is not essentially about generative AI itself, right? But this is a conversation in general, right? That all of us should have, right? Whether you are leading a business or whether you are leading a small team or a function in your organization. To answer the question, what business are you in? Okay, so some quick trivia. Identify the company. Kodak. What business was Kodak in? Cameras, films, mobile, printers, right. And since it thought about itself as being in these industries, films, cameras, right, and that's the reason why it was disrupted also, right. But if Kodak would have thought that they were in the industry, in the business of capturing memories, right, then maybe they would have foreseen the disruption coming their way through digital cameras and all of that, right? And they could have taken steps to augment that, right? So thinking about what business we are in is crucial. Next example, identify, very simple. Nokia. What business was Nokia in? Connecting people. There was slogan, the tagline, phones, mobile phones, right? But if they had moved ahead of that, thinking about just the hardware that they produce, right? They were essentially, as the tagline says, connecting people. They were in the business of connecting people, right? And if they had thought about this particular fact that they are in the business of connecting people, they could have probably foreseen the disruption that was coming their way. But it's good that they have still reinvented themselves and focused on their strengths to remain relevant. Blockbuster, USA ka movie rental. Yeah, and Netflix disrupted their business completely, right? And they are closed, right? 2012, 14 aisa kuch to band hua, right? So what business were they in? They were a movie rental company. Blockbuster was a movie rental company. Entertainment, right? But they should have been in the business of entertaining people in whatever ways people want to acquire the entertainment, right? And if they had thought about from the user's point of view, right, maybe they would have probably withstood the disruption that was coming their way, right? So a lot of disruption can be mitigated, can be managed, right, if you are able to think about what business you are in. And this is not just at a large organization level, right? This is also true at a team level, right? At a function level, right? What business are you in? What are you doing? And it is not limited to thinking about hardware and software and what we produce, right? It is about the user, right? What are those humane characteristics that we should touch, right? Like we spoke about Kodak, capturing memories, connecting people, right? Delivering entertainment, right? In different forms, right? May I ask you a question? AI, right? For those of us, I'm a practitioner in AI. For those of us who are in technology or AI, right? What would you say? What business are we in? Sorry? Capturing intelligence, okay. Anybody else? Shortening the time frame from input to output, valid. Decision support system. Data analysis, okay. So I like to also maybe add one more to your answers, right? And that is, maybe we are in the business of instant gratification, right? Trying to gratify people as fast as possible, as best as possible, right? And that is what ChatGPT is doing. Now, why are we such big fans of generative models and ChatGPT and all of that, blowing everybody's mind away, right? That is because it's providing us instant gratification, right? Wow, क्या चल रहा है? बस थोड़ा डालो और मिल गया result, right? So, yeah, so identifying what business we are in is crucial. Parting thoughts, right? So I maybe allow us some time to read through the comic. Okay. So while AI is in vogue, right, the world, right, has always been centered around human capital, right, and that is what drives innovation, disruption, whatever you might call it. Given the onset and onslaught of AI, right, devising ways to best utilize our talent is something that's crucial. And I would want us, all of us, right, if you are ever in that situation, as a result of AI, to have to making a choice of laying off people, right? May I request you to utilize the HITL framework, and that is human in the loop, right? Because AI still, maybe in the future it will, but AI still hasn't yet been as accurate as a human being can be, right? And we still do require humans to support our systems. This is something that I remind myself, and maybe I thought I'll put it up on the slide as well. Life is too short for regrets, right? At the end of the day, we are all human beings and have our aspirations. Take that chance, no matter how late it is. The world doesn't need one messiah, but it needs many of us to be kind people. Comfort zones are where dreams die, and we should always be striving to move out of it. And finally, being the best of ourselves is where we'll be successful. Thank you once again, everybody. I've come to the end of my session. And as you pursue all of these challenging times, right, with agility, I wish you all the very best and keep pushing the pinnacles of success. Thank you so much.